Okay. I guess they're trying to tell me that I was on mute. I'm sorry for that, ladies and gentlemen. I apologize. It's one of the disadvantages of being alone in the studio. And that was supposed to be the topic of my broadcast tomorrow, which was non-financial ways that you can help Research Roadshow. I'll recap very quickly what I was saying about the governor of Montana, John Forte, and then I'll get into the real story of today that Harry the Greek was covering. Okay, how's my audio now? Okay, yes, we do need more teamwork at Research Roadshow, and we need new team members. You do not have to move to Georgia in order to become a team member here at Research Roadshow. There are plenty of functions that you can volunteer for, and in very limited cases, maybe even be paid for, such as a programmer. But you have to let me know that you have these talents and desires and willingness and time in order to perform those duties. It might only take 2 hours a week, depending on the type of position. In any case, let's get back to Harry the Greek's great reporting. All right, I will pull up Harry's second story, that about the train wreck in East Palestine, Ohio. And you say, well, John, we've all been following the train wreck. We know pretty much what's going to happen. You know what you're going to say in this regard, but maybe not. We are going to watch party this video and the next video on Thursday, on Thursday's broadcast about the functions of government and why a representative government to deal. But let's play 30 seconds of this clip here, because I think it's kind of important. It sums up what. Sorry for the commercial ads. This video kind of sums up what I'm going to talk about on Thursday.
Into the Ohio River.
It's water that's able to dilute the pollutants pretty quickly.
Tiffany Cavalier seemed to deny it, and as far as saying we're confident those levels are not getting passed on to you, the water customer, active water treatment, and the potential to close any water intakes if it's necessary. Northern Kentucky Water District confirmed days ago workers are collecting samples and analyzing to see if there's any potential threat to our drinking water. If the contaminants continue downstream, it also said workers will shut down its Ohio River intakes as a precaution measure. Water District, 300,000 Campbell counties in Pendleton County, as well as the airport.
That stuff ain't good for you.
Jack Duncan lives in Erlanger and is still skeptical about Tuesday's water update, especially after remembering some of the video that came out of East Palestine showing cloud smoke after the spring.
Okay, we are going to watch party frame by frame this video and two other videos that talk about the derailment. But for right now, I want to say, and I haven't had the time to dig very deep into this, but I would strongly suggest that you not drink the water that came even through the filtration plant in any of those cities close to the Ohio River. And by close, I'm talking within 80 miles. Here's why. Okay, and this is based on my minimal entry-level chemistry courses in college, plus having translated here and there a few papers, scientific papers from Italian into English. Here is why I say you should not drink the water. Let's pull up this next video. Okay, here's 4 of the chemicals that fell into the river. I'm not sure how well you can see that. Here you see 4 of the chemicals that fell into the river. And I want to point out that each of these is very, very small, especially the vinyl chloride. The vinyl chloride is a small molecule. It's only a little more than 2 times the diameter of a water molecule. And I do not believe that there's any water filtration system in the continental United States that can get rid of vinyl chloride. Now, the experts may differ, but if it's just me that has to make the big decision, I am not going to trust any commercially available water filtration system to take that out. The only method that I would trust would be to evaporate the water and then recondense the steam and then do it again. But that's just me. Others in the chat, like Dave Fitz, might not concur. But right now, if you hear people saying, "Oh, it's safe now to drink the water," don't trust them. Do not trust. In fact, in Italy, we learned 40 years ago, don't trust public officials after a major disaster. Just don't. Let's go back to Harry's reporting. Okay, staying on the train crash, we have to ask, first of all, why are dangerous chemicals being transported on this rail system, which it hasn't had any serious maintenance in 55 years. Let's take Amtrak, for example. It takes 15 minutes longer to go from New York to Washington on Amtrak than it did in 1973. 15 minutes longer because of the poor state of our rail system. And that's the passenger rail. They try to keep that up because cargo doesn't complain. So imagine how bad it is on the cargo side. Now, we have been paying through the nose for county and state and federal taxes for the maintenance of infrastructure. Where is the return on our investment? That's a question we have to start asking, especially at the county level. All right. But let's stay on the topic of hazardous material, highly hazardous, especially in the case of a leak or of an explosion. There have been, the last time I did the calculations, sending something by rail costs 20 cents per kilowatt hour, just the energy alone, 20 cents per kilowatt hour to transport a train car, whether it's hazardous or not. There are several available technologies to permit the safe transport of hazardous materials, not by using rail. A good example is this. I talked a few weeks ago on the Italian job about a young man, Engineer Stellabotte, and his idea for transporting materials over lake or a major ocean or water body. And that would permit something on the order of 5 cents per kilowatt hour. Okay. And it goes through Sea State 5 because of his disturbance rejection methodology. So you can transport hazardous materials like the ones involved in the East Palestine disaster over, maybe you don't want to do this between Nebraska and Kentucky, but at least between 2 points on or close to a seaboard you could use this method to transport the cargo. And not only is it safer, but it costs less in terms of energy. So there's the CO2 argument. If CO2 is really a bad thing, and we have to give everybody a carbon cap, be it individuals or families or communities, if they're all have to be given a carbon cap in order to save the world from CO2, then why isn't these alternative methods, which simultaneously improve safety, efficiency, and reduce the carbon footprint? We have to start asking those questions. All right, let's go back to Harry. Now, as many of you know, I had heard of Harry the Greek prior to COVID, but I did not know that he was located, that he lived in Ohio. And so I thought, well, he's getting very little traffic, and there were the other news sites. The other news sites had lots of buzzers and bells and conduits from Facebook. And I said, well, these stories are a little more appealing visually. They have, bright, shiny spokespeople, and they speak very fluently. It's more attractive to the eye. That's why I didn't really latch on to Harry's site until George Webb pointed out that he was following Harry. And even more to the point, Harry had given him at least 4 big stories. So let's pull up this one here about Eugene Yu. Now, the reason I think for not that the East Palestine disaster wasn't newsworthy, but the reason I think that they're putting all of this attention on it and artificially inflating the number of stories, like those surrounding Mike DeWine, those could be because they want to keep everyone's attention on that story so that they don't focus on Harry's other articles. Okay, let's pull that one up. This Eugene Yu case is a big, big deal. I can't underline that enough. And I don't know why more people, especially those who were concerned about election fraud, are not taking this seriously. Oh, wrong one. Sorry about that. Okay. Mr. Eugene Yu, as you know, was the former CEO of Connect, formerly LJ Connections. And the other night we had the great Chris Hunter on, who came up with a lot of new information about Connect and about their connections, excuse the pun, to other major players in the United States and in Europe. So let's pull up some of these. Again, the Superior Court of Los Angeles is where the action is. I encourage you, everyone who sees this broadcast, if you know someone who knows someone who lives in Southern California, get word to him or her that you should consider going to the courtroom on February 23rd. We need as many people, citizens, everyday citizens, present in the courtroom on that day as possible. This is a big case. Harry the Greek said on October 8th, he said, this is probably the biggest case I've covered in 30 years. All right. The location is Los Angeles, Clara Shortridge Foltz Criminal Justice Center, room 30. And if you need more details, I will send me an email on all of these stories. Send me an email. I will direct you to the person who knows much more than me. In this particular case, it's Rick Olson of Rick Olson's Music. I will get you in. I will put you in contact with Rick so you can be get to back to your friend or relative in California and tell them where the action is. Now, let's pull up some of Chris's great finds on the Connect case. All right, here we go. Again, if any of you has ever wanted, or if you have a son or daughter or nephew that has thought about being on TV, wants a little bit of practice before going into doing his own thing, I could use a apprentice, if you will, that so he can learn the ropes on how to conduct a newscast or any type of show. Where did I put Chris's great article? All right, here we have the district attorney for Los Angeles County, head of election worker management company, that would be Eugene Yu, arrested in connection with theft of personal data. Again, this is the minimal charges that we are much heavier, but they have not been able to. Eugene Yu has not got off scot-free, as the New York Times and Washington Post tried to say a few weeks ago that that this is a non-case and still ongoing. The 350 terabytes. Let me rephrase that. The $125,000 that was spent or is being spent to crack open the 350 terabyte drive, if that shows any incriminating evidence, Eugene Yu will be somehow pulled back. But even if he's not, the good people, especially those at the Pentagon, who put together the contracts for Eugene Yu, they have some explaining to do, a lot of explaining to do. So say a little prayer that everything goes right on the decryption of that hard drive. All right, it's hard to see, especially if you're on a mobile phone, so I'll read it. Los Angeles County District Attorney George Gascon, between parentheses, another one of George Soros's men and women in California, close parentheses, announced today that an executive with Michigan-based company responsible for the software used in managing poll workers has been arrested. I want to thank my prosecutors and investigators for their commitment to eliminating cyber intrusions against government entities and local businesses, said Gascon. Data breaches are an ongoing threat to our digital way of life. When we entrust a company with our confidential data, they must be willing and able to protect our personal identifying information from theft. Otherwise, we are all victims. Okay, and this goes on to explain, what the actual contract was, how Mr. Yu violated the contract and did not keep secure the personal data. The East Lansing Police Department and Ingham County Sheriff's Office also assisted in the investigation. This by itself, it doesn't address our deeper concerns about everyone's DNA, or the DNA of a lot of American citizens being put underneath this 350 terabytes in the guise of election data. But it's a starting point. It shows that there was a Chinese national who grew up in mainland China, and he's here running our election process. Find out your county board of elections if they're using Connect software, and ask them why they're still using it in spite of this information that came out in October. All right, so let's stop sharing this. And let's go to the next one. Again, shout out to Chris, the IP Hunter, for his excellent work. If any of you wants one of these 11 PDFs from Chris, write to me and I will get a copy over to you. All right, patents. Here are just a few of the patents that have been assigned to Connect Voting Solutions. It's a little hard to see, so I'll do my best to blow this up. Connect Incorporated. Here are the dates, all of them in 2012. Eugene Yu, I'm not sure who Guojun Shao is. That's a new name for me. But here are some of the patent applications that were applied for. Device and method for selection of options by motion gestures. So these voting machines can recognize your hand motions and the individual fingers in order for the computer to decide where you're pointing to, what option on the screen you're pointing to. But who's to guarantee me that they aren't studying your facial expressions to see if you're confused or happy or sad about what you're looking at, and studying how much time you spend. I don't know if anybody could guarantee that. If there is a device and method for recognizing your hand motions, your hands aren't too far from your face. So that's worth investigating. Again, if you want a copy, just email me and I'll get it over to you. All right, next one. Rocket Reach. Chris did a search on Rocket Reach, and this also gave up yielded some pretty good information. All right. My contacts, Yance Yu, Accounts Payable, Los Angeles, California. Knapp Systems. See, each of these is a thread. Going back to Mark Kulak's analogy of a sweater. You pull on one thread, it leads to another thread. You pull on this and it leads to another thread. Each of these, like Mr. Yance Yu, Accounts Payable, is a thread. We need people to voluntarily chase down each of these threads. So please, even if you're new to the game of researching, of doing compound searches, of writing down, archiving, and collating your research results, it doesn't matter your level of experience or inexperience. Write to one of us. We will find a way to help you improve your skills to make the most of your research time. And eventually, maybe 3 or 4 months from now, we'll have a short course on video of different search techniques that you can use and how not to, this is the most important thing, how not to go down a rabbit hole that was purposely designed to track you, to bring you down. There's a lot of those. I know, I've done it myself. Accounts payable, Sima Mehta. Notice that almost all of the names that Chris Hunter is pulling up have a foreign sound to them. That doesn't mean that they weren't born in the United States and they aren't good, loyal Americans. But it is kind of odd that every name that Chris pulls up sounds like the person or his grandparents were from Pakistan or India or China or Russia or wherever. It is kind of odd. Alex Tsai. Who's to guarantee me that Alex Tsai isn't related? Okay, it's a very common name, but it could be related to the person I call General Tsai at a brain institute in the Boston area. Stranger things have happened. Henry Liu, software engineering manager, Taipei City. Dennis Tian, research and development software engineer, Taiwan. Okay, enough on that document. Now, it's not enough to say, yeah, John, there's corruption. What are you going to do? Everything that you hold dear is in the balance here, because this is pivotal to understanding CITL and how CITL works. Remember, CITL controls 80% of the election. I'm sorry. CITL has 80% of the market share on voting ergonomics, on voting logistics, voting logistics throughout the world. Again, let's pull up. Let's go back to their homepage. Okay, on CITL's homepage, it says right there, powering 90% of binding elections with innovative, secure, and transparent technologies. Our initial research has already shown that many of CITL's key employees in the United States, in Spain, in France, and in other countries, Argentina, have relatives at the World Bank, the IMF, et cetera, and so on. There's a reason for that. Okay, this is not random. There are too many, excuse the pun again, connections between CITL and people in these non-governmental agencies that we do not, as citizens in Ohio and Georgia, do not vote upon. It is disturbing, to say the least. Okay, let's go back to Chris Hunter's documents. There is I don't see the one that I'm looking for right now. The IP connections. Let's take a good look at the IP connections. IP does not mean intellectual property, as I stated in the previous slide. IP in this case is IP addresses. This is a treasure trove. Oh, a little bit too much. All right. There's 2,000 pages in this document showing many, if not all, many of Seidel's, I'm sorry, is this Seidel or Connect? Connect. This is just Connect. Their reach, the points, the other computers in the world along the worldwide network that are somehow attached to the internet, not counting the possible use of a dark internet by DoD or some foreign military power. This is what Chris has been able to verify, that each element on this page and the subsequent pages is a computer that that Chris can verify that there is IP traffic going back and forth between that and a Connect owned or operated server. Let's see how far we can zoom in. And it won't be too surprising to see BlackRock here. Okay, I'll need a refresher course from Chris Hunter on what each of the symbols means. But okay, I thought in a previous exercise he did put a label, a domain name below the 12-digit IP address. In this case, he did not. But again, please, if you need a copy of this, if you think it can be beneficial to your research, ask me for it and I'll get it to you. And there is another job that can perform, and that is keeping a list, just keeping a master list of documents. If someone could take that job off of my shoulders, that would be fantastic. You don't need to be an all-out computer whiz to help just a little bit. It's many hands make light work. Okay. I'm not getting, this is not the IP diagram that Chris showed me earlier. That was more human readable. Let's stop sharing this for a minute and go back to some of the others. But again, there's tons of information out there. This is why Harry always says it basically boils down. The problems we have in North America today basically boil down to how much sweat and blood and tears are you willing to put forth to bring out the information, extract the key information, and get it down, boil it down to something essential that you can give to your congressman or congresswoman, and that you can share with your friends. Actually, the version you give to your congressman has to be really simple to understand, but we'll table that for another day. All right. Here is the response of, this isn't the one either. I was looking for the response to the written response by Connect to LA's initial questioning. Anyway, I want to open a parentheses here to talk about a Mr. Luke Cizak in the LA County DA's office. Mr. Cizak spelled Sisak, is I think he has done a very good job of making sure that of letting the Ospreys understand that their input is important. I'm not saying that he's not feeling any pressure at all from some powerful figures in Southern California, especially those connected to George Soros. I am saying that he has so far he has not done anything visibly illegal. He has not. He's been very open to Rick Olson's requests for information. He's responded in a timely manner to his and Harry's emails, and that is considering another public official that I know and that I've personally dealt with in the United States. It is not easy because these powerful figures behind the scenes, the men and women behind the curtain, have ways of getting someone to do something that is not in their best interest or their children's best interest. And so it's not an easy line. That's what I'm trying to say. Mr. Cizek is not walking, it's not an easy road to hoe. And so my compliments to him for his the work he's done so far, and the fairness that seems to be given in the face of the confront of the Ospreys. Yes, I agree with Susan's comment in the chat that the election process should not generate billions in profit for anybody, whether they're private or public or PPP. Nobody should be getting rich off the election system. In fact, most people I know, they actually lose money because they have to take a day off of work in order to go down to the elections and the polling booth and wait in line for an hour or two. Anyway, enough about that. Let's get back to Chris's reporting. Okay, in this case, Chris is talking about a app. And here we see the Connect Shake to Vote app. Vote Edge is the only smartphone application for voters who are blind, visually impaired, or have a disability or condition that makes it difficult to use traditional voting machines. It combines touchscreen, voice command, and shake to vote technology, making it one of the easiest and most accessible voting devices available. And this is in line with Connect's other commercials. The other three were videos showing how safe and effective the voting machine can be and how hard it is to penetrate for outside hackers to penetrate. They have spent considerable money on advertisements aimed at convincing you and me that electronic voting is perfectly safe. No one could ever tamper with your vote. And they could never, certainly not record how you're voting, so that if you work for a Fortune 500 and your boss wouldn't, I won't go there for now. They do spend a lot of the profits that they make in these very elaborate advertisements to convince us it's perfectly safe and effective. Okay, let's go to the next one. I think I'll do two more and then I'll wrap it up. Come on, StreamYard, work with me. Okay. Hopefully you can see that. Plain Sight. This is a very good website. Thanks again to Chris Hunter for pointing this out to me. The Plain Sight website has tons of good information, not just about Connect and voting companies in the voting business, but in many different fields. Okay, so here we have the case number 3:17-CR-02869-BTM. I'll open another parentheses. This is another way that you can get involved. If you live next to or close to a major city's courthouse, you can take a bicycle or even in a car and go to the courthouse and do a little bit of research. We have nothing frustrates George Webb more than having to make the trek to a courthouse in New York City to get one document, right? On one page, just one page. If there were a small army of 200 volunteers that would go to the nearest courthouse and get those copies of those legal briefs, then it would save the 20 most active Ospreys a lot of time. Okay. Chris tried to explain to me why this was important, and I've already forgotten. Yu Pingyang, also known as Gold Sun, defendant. I forget how this is connected to Eugene Yu. But the conspiracy, computer hacking. Company A was headquartered in San Diego, California. Company B was headquartered in Massachusetts. I can guess where. Company C was headquartered in Los Angeles, California, and Company D was headquartered in Arizona. Defendant Yu Pingyang was a malware broker in the People's Republic of China. An Internet Protocol IP address is a unique series of numbers that identifies computing devices connected to the Internet. Computers use IP addresses, blah, 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 blah. An automated Internet database system called Domain Name System is used to translate domain names into the actual IP address. Okay, we know all that. Okay. The term zero-day exploit refers to a vulnerability or hole in a computer or software security that a hacker can exploit. One of the defining features of a zero-day exploit is that nobody but the hacker know about the vulnerability and the means for exploiting it. The term remote access Trojan refers to a software program that allows an outside party, such as a hacker, to gain remote control over the computer on which the rat is installed. The remote access is often called a backdoor. The term watering hole attack refers to a hacker's installation of malicious software on legitimate websites frequently visited by employees of entities the hackers are targeting. When users visit the legitimate website, malware is installed on the user's computers. This is akin to a predator waiting to ambush prey at the location the prey goes to drink water. Okay, the conspiracy. Beginning in or about April of 2011 and continuing up to and including January 17th of 14, within the Southern District of California, there's a misspelling there. The defendant did knowingly, intentionally, and willfully agree and conspire with other persons known and unknown, including uncharged co-conspirators, to cause the transmission of a program, information, code, and command, and a result of such conduct, intentionally cause damage without authorization to a protected computer, including a loss of at least $5,000, in violation of 18 U.S.C. 1030. Now, we have been told over and over again by CITL that, and Dominion and the other three major voting equipment manufacturers, that there's absolutely no way that a hacker could ever get in. But I am not so sure that that's the case. Starting with the fact that I was in Building 32, MIT's Building 32, where most of CSAIL, most of the people employed by CSAIL, the Artificial Intelligence Lab, work. When I overheard three PhD students talking about how they would do it if they were, this is going back to November of 2016, how they would do it if they had to get into a voting machine computer, okay, or how they would permit a backdoor that a expert, a subject matter expert inspecting the motherboard and the daughter boards could not detect. This tells me that it is theoretically possible. And so nobody, especially at the County Board of Elections, is going to convince me that it is impossible. I digress. The objects of the conspiracy were carried out in substance as follows. Defendant Yu and co-conspirators in the PRC would acquire and use malicious software tools, some of which were rare variants previously unidentified by the FBI and information security community, including a malicious software tool known as Sakura. Let's pause a minute on the FBI. Harry maintains that one of the most existing, we don't know, or we're not allowed to know, and the affidavit is held under seal by the FBI. The FBI cannot show, I think he said even, well, I don't want to, I was about to say even to the judge, but that this kind of sealed affidavit in such an important case, it really is unsettling. On Thursday, I'll talk about the Olympic Park here in Atlanta. Defendant Yu and co-conspirators in the PRC would establish an infrastructure of domain names, IP addresses, accounts with internet service providers, and websites to facilitate hacks of computer networks operated by companies in the United States and elsewhere. Defendant Yu and co-conspirators in the PRC would use elements of that infrastructure and a variety of techniques, including watering hole attacks, to surreptitiously install or attempt to install files and programs on the computer networks of companies in the US and elsewhere, including but not limited to Company A, Company B, and Company C. In furtherance of conspiracy and accomplished two objects thereof, the following overt acts, among others, were committed within the Southern District of California and elsewhere on or about the dates set forth below. Let's pause for a second. On line 23 of this document, the word conspiracy shows up. The word conspiracy, it is against the law in hundreds of sections of US code. It is against the rules to engage in conspiracy to defraud the US taxpayer or the public in general. Conspiracies do happen. And the more time, my father-in-law taught me this, he was a lawyer, the wealthier the family is, the more they spend their time engaging in conspiracies. Okay, they could be good conspiracies, like we're going to build a big tennis complex and have tennis courts galore, and people will pay money so they can exercise and get healthy. But more often than not, these are conspiracies that that cause harm to individuals and groups in their region. So I'll have to get back with Chris on how this connects to Eugene Yu and his trial. But this is a major case in U.S. in the past 40 years of U.S. Quote unquote democracy. Okay, we have, like I've been saying for 5 months, we have a toehold on some form of representative government. The actions of the Montana governor, John Forte, speak to a shrinking of that toehold. It's more and more, it's looking like our governors don't have to listen to us. We are not even the voting public is not even a stakeholder in many of the trials involving the big energy corporations, the big steel corporations, the railroads. Again, we're gonna break down that the railroads. Oh, by the way, commercial announcement for David Cranmer Underdown tomorrow night on Citizens Intel. We're going to have David Cranmer Underdown on, and he will address in the first hour. He will talk about the Payseur family. That's Payseur. Up until 1951, the most powerful family in North America by far. Makes the Rockefellers look like, well, not like people with a tin cup, but the Payseur family was much more wealthy than the Rockefeller family. And the railroads, the railroads figured heavily. I think that the Payseurs owed, and this is back in around 1910, owned 80% of the railroads in the southern U.S. It's shocking. It was shocking to me when David first told me about this. There are conspiracies from time to time against the American voting public or against the American taxpayer, because it's eventually the taxpayer who pays 3 times, right? Pays for the initial advertisements on this big project, how the project is going to be great for the American taxpayer. Then he pays again when he's, for example, riding the train. Because of it's a monopoly, the train fare is higher. And then he pays a third time in all the expenses associated with anti-monopoly litigation and the breakup of the enterprise into smaller chunks, and all the federal tax money, the federal prosecutors, and all the courts that have to be called into question. So what I'm essentially trying to get at here, the reason that Harry's first point is still valid, that Americans are not examining, on their nightly news are not getting the most important topic of the day, is a very important point, a very valid point. And I feel it necessary to be somewhat of a repeater of Harry's news to get this out to, my hope is that by July of this year to have 6,000 subscribers. Okay, that's my goal. If I get some of the aforementioned help I spoke of, I believe we can get to 6,000 subscribers by mid-July. We need to get those 6,000 people the information that they are missing day after day after day, and that is allowing the most powerful people in America, especially in New York, Boston, Chicago, and Los Angeles, to do these backroom deals to cause financial and at times physical harm, as in the case in East Palestine, physical harm to American citizens. There's a lot of work to do. So please read each of Harry's articles, click on the links. All of his links go to websites that are federal government websites, state government websites, World Bank, World Health Organization. I almost said World Health Authority, but they're not there yet. Each of his links goes to a primary source. That's what the other websites like Rebel Media will not do. They won't go and get a primary source. Please support Harry. Please support Research Roadshow. I'll put up the graphic for how you can support us. Again, we do not have a BlackRock or any other company giving us money to keep us going. So we rely on these three methods for now. I'm going to have a couple more by the end of next week. For now, we have Buy Me a Coffee. Even though it says John Wilkins, the money goes to Research Roadshow LLC here in Atlanta, Georgia. Venmo.com, John-Wilkins-274, or researchroadshow.com donations. All the money goes to Research Roadshow LLC. And right now it's taking about $1,800 a month to keep the show going. Please support us that with a little improvement in the donations we get, we can widely expand the offering and get better engagement from our subscribers and grow the number of subscribers from the present 1,980 something to the 6,000 that I mentioned before. Thank you very much for your support. Please tune in Thursday when I'll cover the train derailment in depth, and on the ways we'll go through a couple of articles from the Cleveland Plain Dealer. Full disclosure, I used to be a paperboy for the Cleveland Plain Dealer, and we'll look at some of those articles and how they're carefully worded. Every single word or sentence makes sense and is more or less truthful. It's the conclusion that is taking you off away from what the powerful groups aforementioned don't want you to look at. Thank you, everybody. Have a good night. Keep smiling. It drives the AI crazy.